I've seen a lot of coaches struggle with this, which is why in this video, I'm going to be going in depth on how to close high ticket deals as a coach in just 5 easy steps. And I've broken this down into 5 phases, which is 1, mindset and frame, 2, diagnosis and discovery, phase 3, solidify the gap, phase 4, proposition, and phase 5, the price drop. So if you don't believe that we have actually been able to secure some pretty decent results in the info space already, first, have a look at all of the other videos on my channel. I do funnel breakdowns where I'm able to kind of showcase my expertise and understanding of each and every funnel and conversion system. And 2, I do document some case studies that has worked for myself and for some of my clients as well. And if you still don't believe me, feel free to actually pause and have a look through some of these results up on the screen right here. We even had one of our clients do $17,000 in the first 9 days of the month. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, phase number 1, which is mindset and frame. It is very important that with mindset, you hop into the call when your head is clear. Okay, make sure you enter the call when you're calm and collected, and last but not least, release all judgment up to the call, which is why I believe sometimes it can be detrimental to financially qualify each and every lead that goes through your funnel, because if they're not financially qualified, you may not take that call as seriously, and therefore you may bring some judgment to that call and you won't try as hard, or you won't actually care about the result as much, meaning if they give you an objection saying they need to think about it, you might just go, all right, well, take your time and think about it, and you're not actually going to do whatever it takes to close that deal. Now, if we just quickly move on to the second part, which is, what's going on? Glitched out for me here. Here we go, fixed it, which is the frame. Now, how the call will start is how it will go and how it will end. This is a saying that I actually got from one of my mentors, but essentially, when it comes to onboarding clients or anything you do, how you start is how it will go and how it will end. And this is the frame you want to have going into the call as well, because the expectation and the frame that you set at the start of the call is exactly how the call will go and how the call is going to end. Now, the second thing is make the prospect bend to your frame, not the other way around. Now, this is not some Sigma alpha stuff for you to follow. You don't have to make the prospect like bend to you and be submissive to you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to be very, very firm with your frame, and you have to be confident to take the lead in the call. Otherwise, the prospect is not going to be able to trust you in order to give you their money and trust you with the services you're going to provide them. You have to be very, very confident in your abilities to, 1, sell and speak to them, and 3, you have to be very, very confident in your ability to actually deliver the service, because that will reflect in your energy, and that way you'll actually be able to hold a very, very strong frame where the prospect can bend to that. Okay, because if you lay out on the call, as I have it right here, if you say something like, right at the start of the call, by the way, if you say, so on this call, my purpose is just to understand a little bit about your situation, your goals, and if it does sound like a fit, we can get into how we could get you started. Does that sound good? And they'll be like, yeah. But what you have done here is not you've just said a bunch of gibberish. What you have done is you have set the frame and the expectation for how the call is going to go. So now if the prospect wants to start asking you questions, or if he's like, hey man, actually I want to spend this time asking you some questions about your program, is that fine? You're going to be like, no, that's not usually how we conduct calls. And if the prospect continues to barge into asking you a bunch of questions when you're supposed to be the one asking questions, then you just should refuse and saying like, hey man, this is not usually how these calls go. As I said earlier in the call, this way you're able to leverage this, what we're speaking about here. You're able to leverage this, and you're able to say, like earlier in the call, I mentioned that, I want to get a better understanding of your situation, your goals. And then if it's the right fit, I'm more than happy to propose it to you. So would you be able to save the questions for a little bit later? And then if they still don't want to bend to your frame, then refuse to take that call, because if the prospect cannot bend to your frame, you're not going to be able to close. You have to have a very firm standpoint in the call that someone can at least follow your lead, because if no one's going to follow your lead, how are you expecting them to, pay you and become your client if they're not willing to even listen to you on a sales call before they've even paid you money? Now, phase number 2. Now, the objective of diagnosis and discovery is to, 1, understand the prospect's current situation, discover their pains, and discover their desires. Now, what I call this is kind of like, it's called a doctor frame, right? A lot of people actually speak about this, but it's essentially if you act as a doctor and you're dealing with a patient. That's exactly how you want to be taking these calls. And this is something I got from Charlie Morgan, but essentially you don't want to focus on closing the call. You should be focusing on diagnosing the call. You should be focusing on making sure that this person that's on the other side of the screen actually needs what you're selling. Because if you don't firmly believe that in the bottom of your heart, it is going to be extremely hard to close someone and be very, very genuine. And when you're not genuine, that's when you're going to come off as pushy. Now, this is a very big limiting belief that, some clients that I deal with have at the start, is they don't want to be too pushy on these sales calls. But the reality is if you have a logical reason to back up why you want the deal closed, it is not pushy. It's only pushy when you're desperate and you don't actually have a reason for them to pay on that call. But if you've done your diagnosis correctly and you've discovered that, all of what they're telling you actually makes sense and what you have to sell is actually the solution, is actually going to change your life for the better, you are going to do whatever you can from a good place in your heart to close them and to make sure that they actually pay you money on that call and they take that leap of faith. Therefore, you're not going to come off as pushy, but rather you're going to come off as a doctor. As like, kind of if a doctor says, you need to take paracetamol, and you say, nah, I'm a little scared of taking this, penicillin drug. And he's going to be like, no, but I mean, like, this is really going to help you. But the only reason he's saying that is because he believes it's actually going to help you. Now, this is the same thing here. If you genuinely believe that what you're providing to your prospect is actually going to help them, and the only way to figure that out is by actually doing your diagnosis and discovery, it's going to be very, very easy to sell. Now, another thing you want to know is where they are specifically and where they actually want to be, okay? Now, we will actually use that as leverage later down in the call, but it's very, very important that you dig deeper when you ask these types of questions. So when you ask what their pains are, what their desires are, okay, there are multiple ways. You don't ask what are your pain points, you don't ask what are your desires, but you ask different questions. So where are you currently at with your business, with your job? Oh, I saw in the application that you're currently a software engineer. Tell me more about that. I mean, like, why do you want to be an entrepreneur all of a sudden? Why do you want to leave a secure job like being a software engineer to becoming an entrepreneur? Make them feel the pain and the weight of their situation, okay? And that's all by digging deeper. You want to understand the why, the how. You want to understand what they have tried before to get out of their current situation and what they're willing to try now to get out of their situation. And if those online, they're probably going to say that what they need to do is work with you or start the business model that you're teaching in order for them to get out of their current situation. If you relate this to therapy, they need to go through you, or they need to get someone who's going to hold them accountable and ask them the right questions and help them overcome their trauma or overcome their actual internal conflicts. Now, the reason I say you want to know where they are currently specifically, the reason I say specifically here and here, is because you want to know the exact point. So if your coaching business is a how to make money online coaching business, you want to figure out exactly how much they're earning from their job right now, or from perhaps side hustles, how much they're making overall on a monthly basis, specific number. And you want to know where they want to be as well, which in this case could be how much they want to make every single month. If this is related to trauma, you want to know specifically where they are and what problem they're struggling with, and where they actually want to be, and at what point in life, or I guess self-esteem, they want to be, okay? And once you figure this out, you can actually leverage this later in the sales call to kind of help the prospect take leaps and bounds to actually bettering their life. Now, you could call this manipulation, but if it really benefits the person for the better, okay, there's very, very powerful stuff, but if it really benefits the prospect for the better and it changes their life for the better, is it really bad? Let me know in the comments. Now, phase 3 is actually solidifying the gap, okay? Now, this is the key, because if you're not able to pull this off, you have 1,000, not even 100, 1,000% lost that deal, okay? If you do not do this correctly, if you're not able to pull this off. So what you essentially want to say is, after figuring out where they are currently specifically and where they want to be specifically, you want to ask them this. So you're currently at current state. Let's say in this case, it's 2K a month and you want to make 20K a month. So you can say, so you're currently at 2K a month and you want to be at 20K a month. So tell me, John, what's stopping you from doing that on your own? Now, John will tell you one of these 3 things, okay? Or this is one of these 3 things that you want John to tell you. And he's going to tell you otherwise that he just doesn't know what he is doing. He's going to tell you, he might tell you that he just wants someone to guide them and be their mentor. Or number 3, he's just going to say that he wants a mentor to help them achieve that desired outcome quicker. So he might just say like, man, you know what? I have money. I just want to get to 20K a month quicker. And if you don't get any of these 3 things, you want to get it out of them and you want to keep digging deeper. Because if the prospect turns around and says, I mean, I can do it by myself, well, then I think what you need to do in that sales call is say, all right, well, in that case, John, I guess you don't need our help. And then John, in some cases, might go, wait, and then start, kind of confirming or affirming why he actually needs you as his mentor. But if in the other case he has an ego, perhaps he's very, very confident in his skills, you might want to ask him, okay, so, I mean, I don't mean this the wrong way, John, be completely honest with me, but like, why haven't you been able to achieve it yet? And then you want to dig deeper into that. Because if you can't get the prospect to admit any of these three things, you are not going to be able to close them. Because what this does is, as soon as they say one of these three things, they have now basically told you that they need your coaching. They need you as their mentor. And when they turn around, when you do the price drop, and they turn around and say, like, I need to think about it, or I don't know if this is for me, you can be like, but John, earlier, you told me that this is exactly what you need to do, and you're not going to be able to do it on your own. So tell me, like, would you rather take the leap of faith right now and, at least take a little tiny risk that's going to perhaps improve your life tenfold? Or would you rather just kind of stay in the same position for the rest of your life? I mean, it's kind of your choice, do you not think? And you can use that against them later in the call. Again, you can call this bad manipulation or whatever, but if it helps and it improves the person's life for the better, it really is powerful to helping people make the right decision. Now, phase 4, which is the proposition, okay? Now, as you see, I already written in bold, be very, very confident, okay? The key when saying what I'm going to say below is to be very, very confident and sure of what you're saying. If you stutter or gas out speaking, your prospect will not feel confident betting on you as their savior. It is very, very important you say this and you actually mean it when you say it. And you want to say exactly this. You want to say, well, in that case, John, I'm very confident that what we have here is going to solve that exact problem for you. Is it cool if I show you how? You want to get their permission, and they're most probably going to say yes. I mean, like 99% chance they're going to say yes. And if they say yes, you're like, cool. You mind if I quickly share my screen? You share your screen, and in this case, you can show them your pitch deck if you have one. You can show them a Miro board. What I tend to show some of my clients is going to a page like this, and I just break down exactly what I do for my clients and how it would work for them if they were to work with me. You can also just simply give them an offer breakdown, so maybe have a Google Doc with just all the deliverables that you go through. You can also give them a peek inside your program or your course, or you can even show them your curriculum if you want, depending on what they said. You want to tie it to exactly what they said back in the discovery phase. And now phase 5, which is the price drop. Now, as you see, I said shut up strategy up there, but this is very, very important, okay? Because right before you want to go into the pricing, you want to ask the prospect if they have any other questions, or are you good to go into the pricing to work together? So you want to frame it like this. So maybe they'll stop speaking or you'll stop speaking. You'll be like, okay, John, look, do you have any other questions, or like, am I good to go into the pricing with this? And he's going to be like, he might ask you a question, or he might be like, all right, I mean, let's go into the pricing. And it's very, very important that after your pitch, or after you pitch your price, I was meant to say you here, after you pitch your price, you shut up. Super important, okay? The first one to speak loses. This is the exact same thing I say to all of my clients, okay? I tell my clients to do all of this. And this puts pressure on the prospect to give you an answer, whilst also giving them the time and space to think about, or to think before answering as well. So you want to frame it like this, okay? So John, with everything that we're going to do for you, meaning that's the course, that's the case studies, that's everything else with the one-on-one coaching and the curriculum, all of this will come at a one-time cost of $6,000. And you just want to stare at them. You stare at them, you can take a sip of water. Whatever you do, do not speak, because what they're going to do is you're going to literally see their brain work in real time. They're going to probably look to one corner and they're going to think. And they're going to think very, very hard. And you want to make sure that you really don't speak, because when you don't speak, that's going to put the balls in the prospect's court, and they're going to think that, you're putting the pressure on them to kind of give you an answer. They feel like they need to give you an answer, whether that's a yes or a no. And in some cases, that might be an objection. But it is very, very important that you do not speak first, because what that's going to do, it's going to put the pressure on the prospect to actually give you an answer Whereas if you are to start speaking, you're going to go off on a tangent, and then getting them back to that price point and actually closing them on the deal is going to be extremely difficult. So it's very, very important that you stick to this. And one final note before I end this video up is when you are discovering their pains and you're digging deeper, it is going to feel extremely uncomfortable, and you have to be comfortable with making people uncomfortable, because the reality is a lot of people, they require pain to make these decisions. And if you're not able to inflict that pain and be comfortable with inflicting that pain, because the call will be a little awkward, then maybe you're not cut out for sales. But all jokes aside, everybody's cut out for sales. You just need to get confident with kind of putting people in some degree of pain. And that sounds very, very malicious and ominous. That is not what I mean. I mean, if you can make them feel the weight of their situation, how bad it actually is, you are going to change a lot of people's lives for the better. So I hope this video was valuable. I have a link in the description where you can book in for a completely free audit call with me. All I do is go over your coaching business, see if there's any systems that you could implement, or any of the systems I document on my YouTube channel that could genuinely skyrocket your income. And worst case scenario, we're not even a good fit to work together, there's nothing I can help you with, you can walk away with a personalized game plan, or at least some action points that you can take right after that call, kind of plug and play from that call anyways. It's a completely free audit call. I don't hard pitch you or anything. But other than that, I did hope you found this video helpful. If you did, subscribe, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.